morning and welcome to Inside South Florida. I'm your host, Nik Robinson. We got a full slate for you today, so let's get started. My first guest knows the gambling world like the back of his hand, and with so much potentially changing in the gaming landscape, he's here to give us his take. Please welcome Sentinel gaming writer, Nick Sortal.
Thanks for having me.
Gladly. Thanks for being here. Gaming writer, that's appropriate?
I like that, yeah, I'll take that.
Among other titles that you have with
gaming,
the paper?
Fitness, yeah, human interest.
All
Actually,
sorts of
gaming
good
is
things.
human interest right now, the way it's going.
Absolutely.
It's darn interesting.
So there's all sorts of plans in the works, big places, small places. What's going on here?
There's a lot of moving parts going on right
Yeah.
now, and the big news is that two legislators have proposed destination casinos for South Florida, two big $2 billion monstrosities in Dade and one in Broward County. What's that has created is like a four-sided tug-of-war. The Seminoles are tugging on one end, the pari-mutuels are tugging on another. Those morally opposed to gambling, of course, are tugging on another. And no matter how you tug, you're pulling everybody else too. It's just this great multi-variable, fascinating story that's going to be rolling out for months.
So break it down for me. I'm not that well versed in this scene. So give me each person's position.
Well, right now the position of the destination casinos is they think they can come in, set up huge hotels that people will fly to, and they will get gambling revenues, and revenues meaning taxes, from people other than South Floridians. So we won't be feeding the state pot. All these other people from the Northeast and from Asia will be. Sounds good enough.
The same way, the same
Yes.
thing that is the theory in Vegas or Atlantic City.
Right, exactly. Let's get everybody else's money coming in here.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea. The pari-mutuels, of course, don't like that because they perceive this as pulling on their business. People won't go to the Isle when they can go down to Ginting and play in this beautiful new thing with shiny buildings and shiny dealers and everybody in tuxes.
Sure, 17 restaurants and whatever else is
exactly.
there.
So all the horse tracks, the dog tracks, and highlight frontons are all really nervous about this because they think they're going to get squashed. Meanwhile, the Seminole tribe of Florida, they're kind of twixt in between. Right now, they pay the state $250 million a year for the exclusive right to have blackjack and other table games. If these big casinos come in, that deal gets voided. So they're going to save $250 million a year. But on the other hand, they're going to have this huge competitor here.
Huge competitor, and that was a big thing for the state to get blackjack and poker at all.
Yes, there was a lot of work that went on, a lot of wrangling, probably 20 years worth of deal making in the Florida legislature just to get the Seminole tribe to allow blackjack, let alone having it at a horse track or your casino around the corner. So all these people are trying to get what's in their best interest, and of course the state's best interest is what's fair for everybody. And the great question is what is fair? And everybody has an opinion on that.
Do you think that places like Gulfstream and Isle Casino, that they have their own clientele that is going to stick with them no matter what? Yeah,
there's two different markets. If you think about Las Vegas, there is the Strip where everybody flies into. Then there's downtown where all the locals go to. Basically what we have at Gulfstream, at Mardi Gras, at the Isle, and even Hollywood Classic, the small Indian casino, is we have local casinos where people will drive 3 or 5 miles. At Calder, for example. Calder's full for Miami Gardens. Nobody's going to drive from Calder up to Pompano, for example.
Probably
You're going to
not.
go to your local casino.
Right.
Meanwhile, Ginting will attract people from Asia, people from Latin America. And Latin America is a huge market for gamblers. And when you think about Miami-Dade, more than half the people who fly into Miami-Dade are from Latin America.
Absolutely.
And there's money there. So, and we say Ginting as being one of the people involved, but there's also the Las Vegas Sands that wants in, the Wynn wants in, and they all three want to set up large casinos here.
And so this legislation that's sitting there for Tallahassee, for the people in Tallahassee to look at come March, this is literally geared for those three big giants, right? Is that?
Yes, the part that the legislators are saying is it's not really about the money as much as getting this whole gambling thing under control. They're really ticked off that the Seminoles have the monopoly on blackjack, and they basically say we have an unregulated monopoly here. And what they want to do is they want the control. They want to appoint what's called a gaming commission to watch out over everything. So legislators don't have to do it.
Sure. But I mean,
which would make it better.
That also brings us into a whole new level of being a state that allows gambling. When you add a gaming commission, you are talking Vegas, you are talking Atlantic City. That's some, big shoes right there. Are we going to be able to sustain something like that?
Well, that's what's interesting right now. For Florida being such an anti-gaming state in terms of legislature, we're the 4th largest state in terms of gambling revenue.
Huh. I would not have guessed that.
I know, but you got $2.5 million from the casinos, and you got $4 billion out of the lottery. which is huge. We're one of the huge lottery states.
Sure.
And people like to come down here and you know, would come down here and gamble.
It's so funny how times have changed. When I was growing
Yes.
up, I remember when there was the petitions to get lottery into the state. Like lottery was something that never was going to be considered in the state. That was
Yes.
so controversial.
Lottery was the camel's nose under the tin, actually, because once that happened, everything else happened from
Everything did.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the other casinos would bring in is new games, right?
Yes, if the destination casinos come in, we will finally have craps and roulette here, which will be interesting because there's a certain segment of people that love craps and roulette only, and people don't go to the Hard Rock now because they go, oh, I'll go to the Hard Rock and play roulette. People have walked into the Hard Rock and go, where are the roulette tables? And they get told they're not there.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? Why don't we have roulette and craps?
That was just the deal that the Seminoles made. Blackjack is the most popular game. They figured if they got blackjack for this go-round, they would be happy with it. But like Bogdanoff said, Senator Ellen Bogdanoff, who's one of the two sponsors of the bill, she goes, it doesn't matter if you're racing rats in a building and you're betting on it. Gambling is gambling.
Right.
And she wants the state to somehow have an eye on it. And you're right, we're going to be like Las Vegas and everybody else because we're going to better regulate it if this bill goes through.
So what would that commission look like?
They would interview people. Obviously, they would there'd be some kind of rule such as if you're on the commission, you can't be employed by a casino for another 3 years after you leave. That would stop that old, hey, I'll offer you a job if you give me the deal.
Sure.
Just like reporters leave sometimes to work for legislators.
I've never heard of anything
Never
like
heard
that.
of something like that happening. But so we would be set up like that, and it would kind of take a little bit of the politics out of it. As Bogdanoff says, she doesn't really want to micromanage things. She wants it set up where in the past, the casinos have dictated to the legislators what they wanted. She kind of feels like that the government should drive the bus and tell people what's available.
So what are the next steps?
Well, the next steps is we're looking at 2 or 3 months of just a little bit of incremental news after news. People, you know, this week already, the 4 faith-based groups came out and said, we don't want casinos, and we're going to keep track of how people vote, and we'll remember it, you know. I guess that judge not lest you be judged thing kind of gets,
Sure.
kind of away by the wayside.
Sure.
But yeah, so there's going to be discussion. Discussion doesn't even start till January, and already the papers are full every day of news between this, you know, this casino having an interest here, how the revenue would go, people buying property. It's going to be a great free-for-all. I mean,
well, I mean, it already feels like this fairyland
Yes.
of gambling that's starting to come here. You kind of read and you're like, ooh, that would be beautiful there, but none of this is actually happening yet.
Right, but it's not a spectrum of we have black on one side, white on another, and there's gray in the middle. I mean, we have the whole rainbow here of people with different interests and different takes on this thing. I'll be busy, you know. I may not take vacation between now and March by the time this thing gets voted on.
But hopefully you'll come back and give us the lowdown once it all gets settled.
You got it.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
And you can read all of Nick's insights at sunsentinel.com/action. Coming up, the Orange Bowl is coming to town, but the Orange Bowl committee is so much more than just the game. You'll see what I mean when we come back. But first, it's this week's Kid of Character, a program sponsored by Publix.
Here's this week's Sun Sentinel Kid of Character, sponsored by Publix.
This week's honoree is TALYN HURLEY from Rock Island Elementary School in Fort Lauderdale. TALYN is a caring young lady who sprang into action when a classmate couldn't afford to buy lunch. TALYN immediately gave up her lunch money so her classmate wouldn't go without. TALYN HURLEY is being honored for the character trait of responsibility. You can read TALYN HURLEY's full story in the community news section of Sunday's Sun Sentinel.